So I haven't thought of a title for this episode,
Yeah.
but I was thinking like something like "We sit down and talk to the UK's most controversial allotment company." That's you.
Well, we can run with that. I don't think what we're doing is controversial, but I can see how people might be interested in it, for sure.
Let me tell you something. I think it's quite a testament to how much noise there is around what you guys are doing. That there was actually a split thought process in my head that was like, do I want to go there? I mean, to be fair, in the gardening space, you've hit gold when you're like, this is a bit too controversial to talk about in gardening. Let me just give some background. So, cards on the table.
Yeah.
And it's important to be very, very transparent here. So, and declare my own interests in this. So, I'm a Roots allotment holder. My wife is a Roots allotment holder. I really love what you guys are doing. And, Roots Allotment over the last 2 years
Yeah.
has been genuinely like my happy place through some really quite difficult times personally.
Yeah, same.
However, I hope that this isn't going to be too awkward and difficult a chat because me and you are friends, right?
Yeah, totally.
But friends should be honest with each other. And there are questions that I feel like I want to ask. If we go back in time, I was on the phone to you last week, wasn't I?
Yeah.
And I kind of came to you and I said, I have read some stuff online, a lot online.
There is a lot online.
Right. And, being frank with you, some of it was just silliness to me, personally, personal stuff. But there were some legitimate questions that I had to ask you because I'm somebody that thinks about the ethical side of things.
Yeah.
And if I'm giving Roots my money every month, I kind of wanted answers to those things.
Definitely.
And instead of us just talking on the phone last week, we kind of both came to the idea together of actually sitting down, surrounded by cameras, and
quite daunting, isn't it?
put you on the spot and actually ask those questions.
Yeah.
So my question is, are you scared?
I don't know if I'm scared. I'm just, I'm kind of glad to be attempting to answer people's queries, questions around some of the mysticism that's been spread online. And all I can do is answer from my heart and where I'm at with it and through my passion to do with the project and food growing in general in the UK and my opinion on what the state of play is across the country. So yeah, I'm really excited to get into it and unpick whatever layers of the onion that have been built up around Roots Allotments, which is a really beautiful thing that I love putting all of my energy, time and passion into.
Okay, well, the big question that I'm going to get up front,
Yeah,
and this is the proper gotcha question.
yeah.
Isn't Roots Allotment a con that you guys are basically doing this just so you can build houses eventually on the sites that you've got?
It's a very interesting rumour that has been spread online, and what I can say from our perspective is that we have zero ambitions of building houses on any of the land that we grow on. What the landowners that we partner with do in the future when our leases are over, we have no control over. But we have identified that the UK needs more food growing spaces. People are screaming out for community, and it would make sense for us to take land for up to 25 years to grow food on as a community. And if we can build up a great relationship with that landowner, then we'd love to be able to purchase our locations off them in the future. Because right now we're in a situation where we can only rent our sites because we don't have the money to buy them.
Yeah.
But I can guarantee that between me, Will and Christian, the co-founders, that as soon as we're in a position to buy our locations, we will get it written into the acts of the company that no residential building can ever happen on our allotment sites.
So just to be clear, when you say land partners,
Yeah,
if you take the context of Stourbridge,
yeah,
where my plot is,
Yeah.
what you're saying is like the farmer,
yeah,
who's a lovely chap, by the way,
Yeah.
that you rent the land from. In other words, if he, hypothetically,
Yeah.
down the line,
Yeah.
wanted to apply for some kind of development, then that's out of your hands.
It is out of our control. I think our community would have an opinion on it because
Yeah.
just like the people saying that we want to build houses, we are just as against building houses on Greenbelt as everyone who's claiming that we want to build houses. So there is these
Yeah.
like similarities, and it comes from that paranoia and anxiety around what the government are doing to our green spaces and how they've treated allotment sites over the last 60 years, and the relaxing of planning laws around Greenbelt. Everyone is anxious about what's going to happen to our countryside.
Yeah.
And what I've seen is that because allotments have been sold off in the sort of lower socioeconomic areas, people have not had the ability to collaborate to fight against housing developments that have happened on them. So then this has created a really bad runaway effect where people think, oh, an allotment means housing, but an allotment means community, allotment means local food growing, allotment means empowering other like-minded individuals. And it's really hard to navigate away from these conversations.
Because where we live, and actually where we're recording now at the back of where I live,
Yeah,
and land, growing space, is really hard to come by. I mean, this is the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution. It's still going on around here.
yeah,
So for me, Stourbridge provides such a wealthy resource, not as an investment in terms of, potential development,
yeah.
but just in terms of like, well, it's been there for me for some difficult times, and I'm sure a lot of other members as well.
Definitely. We have stories across every single community, and we have 4,000 people growing with us now, of how their allotments become a lifeline. And this is what I say to a lot of our members on the welcome site. I go, I've been growing since 2020, and that was only what, five years ago, nearly 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine what my life was like before I started this, and I can't imagine what my life would be like if I didn't have this. And I know how important it is to me, and I know how important it is to you and so many of our members. And we recently did our end of season survey where we survey all of our members, and we've had 97% of people agree that growing their own food has helped improve their well-being. And when we're going through a loneliness crisis, a mental health crisis, a physical health crisis, obesity crisis, these spaces, they are lifelines, and they are places of healing. And for me, they're places of tranquility and a beautiful space where you can actually meet like-minded individuals. And it's hard to connect with other like-minded people in real life nowadays. That's what I find.
And people are genuinely so desperate for that community, I find.
Yeah,
That, all forms of membership are in decline, but people are just so desperate for those connections. Like, it's weird because me and you have spoken so many times online, and it's a buzz actually getting to talk to you,
yeah,
even though you're not going to like what I'm about to ask you. I see so much noise about Roots online.
yeah,
And I think one of the key criticisms, concerns, is the relationship that Roots has with venture capitalists.
yeah,
So the idea that you've got this external investment coming into your business,
yeah.
and why that is. It's not a criticism that when we spoke on the phone last week, I could particularly relate to. Why do you think, where do you think people are coming from with that?
It's really hard because, like, we've spoken about this a little bit in the past, but my history before I got into growing, before I moved back home to discover growing, I was part of Extinction Rebellion, and I was incredibly anti this big money idea. And I never thought in a million years that I would take money from someone like a venture capitalist. But when we started Roots, Will and Christian put £10,000 in each. I had nothing, and we ran out in 3 weeks. And we thought, wow, we've actually created something quite special here. But in order to keep it continuing, we need a capital injection. So then we had to go and find that money from somewhere. And it's come from a mixture of people. And I think only 16% of the people who are sort of on our shareholding are venture capitalist firms. So it is a small amount of our shareholding. It's not like venture capitalists have come and taken control of this company. That's not something that we want to happen. It's not something that our investors want to happen. They want to see us live and breathe what we want to achieve with the project and not get in the way, basically. So they're incredibly supportive of everything that we're doing. And I wish there was more capital out there that came from a patient place, where obviously we work with venture capitalists. they say, in order for us to give you money, we need to see a return on our investment. And that's the deal. And it'd be nice if there were people out there who could go, yeah, we're going to give you the money to do this, and we only want to see a fraction of that return of investment, and we want to give you 20 years to build it, guys. But we've searched high and low, and like, if anyone out here is watching this video and knows of people who want to connect us up with funding, then like, we would love to do it, because to date we have taken around £6 million in funding, because we didn't understand exactly how much it costs to do all of this, and we're rolling out green infrastructure across the country, and on average, to build and to fill a site up to 80 to 90% occupancy, it costs about £200,000 to £250,000. Me, Will and Christian have no access to that sort of funding, and despite what people might say on us online about going to private school, none of us have been to private school. We've all been to state school, and we put what we could at the start in, and then we've had to rely on other people's money to get us to this point. And it's quite unbelievable what we have been able to achieve to date with a team of 34 people. 2 years ago it was 12, and a year before that it was 4 of us.
It's interesting what you just said about the relatively low percentage of your funding that comes from venture capitalists, because for me, the reason why I reached out to you last week is I was reading a lot of stuff online
Yeah.
that was just out there in the ether that was quite concerning, and you would not have got that the impression that it was only 16%.
Yeah.
But what you say is so true, that actually these things cost a colossal amount of money. And I think for me personally, working within horticulture, kind of like wanting change to happen, wanting things to be built,
Yeah.
I think the reality is that, you know, the community kind of funded Blue Peter style patch it together model, it only works so far. And if you're genuinely wanting to roll something out, then you need funding, right?
Yeah. So I think we've spoken about it on one of your podcasts before. It's like when we came up with the idea of Roots, we went, oh great, this could be an awesome CIC or an awesome charity. And then we started to investigate the level of energy that we'd have to put into applying to regional grants per location to try and figure out how we could create our allotment sites on it. And we couldn't make it work as a model. So then we thought, right, we have to turn it into a business model, and then we have to find people who want to invest in it. And we have, I mean, it's quite blue sky thinking in the future is to buy out the investors who have invested in us, and then have Roots owned by itself again. And that is a dream that me, Will and Christian are actively working towards, but it's quite a long-term dream, and we have to accept that they're either going to be a barrier that we're going to fail at, or it's going to be a barrier that we're going to overcome. And that's why the funding is essential to us, because the government isn't going to give it to us. So we want to create something for the people, and we will find a way to financially make it work to achieve that dream. Because like, I've been on this planet for 32 years. There's not been a huge amount of change in this country that I've gone, oh wow, that's awesome. And for me, it has to start from the soil up, and it has to start with bringing people back on the land and connecting with each other again, because we've become so distant. And because the allotment spaces have been sold off, and because it's so hard to set up a market garden or a community garden, and funding and all this sort of stuff, it's like, well, how can we use Roots as a platform to achieve wider change within horticulture? And we've got 2 awesome projects at our sites at the moment. We've got Black Growth CIC, which is about a 1 acre market garden in Croydon.
I've seen these guys, it looks awesome.
It's amazing. And they did their first year of growing with us, and they launched their CSA veg box scheme. And it's like, they said to us, like, without you guys empowering us to get on the land, and we charge them £1 rent a year, and £1 for an acre is unbelievable. And
it's an example of your greed in action.
Yeah, well, you know, we're greedy and we want to build houses on this land. But
I did have a quick look in the back of your van when you came here this morning. There wasn't a hard hat and a high vis, so you need to get on that if you're making progression in that area.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my favourite sayings is that, you know, a quality of perfection is existence. That you can hypothesize, you can imagine, you can say, you know, I wish that we had this. I wish that we had a space to do this. Wouldn't it be nice if?
Yeah.
And I think that it's interesting what you say, but you've been on this planet 32 years. I'm way older than you. I'm about to turn 39. But yeah, in the last kind of 16 odd years, I haven't really seen things get better.
And we get bombarded with messaging about how bad everything is. And like before I moved back home to Devon, before I started growing, I was in the deepest, darkest depression of my whole life because I'd gone so far into the climate crisis that I couldn't see a way out. And then through the act of growing, it actually fulfilled me with hope again. And I came from a place of despair to hope. And that's how powerful playing with these gorgeous things is, and eating them, and knowing that you're actively feeding your body and nourishing your body with good instead of going to the supermarket and buying something that's potentially full of poison.
It's that whole thing, isn't it? Of almost, because I can totally relate to what you say, that the problems of the world seem so big that the likes of me and you sitting here, we really can't control the global like CO2 output. Right? But what you kind of can do is control the controllables. And if you've got like a patch at Roots, or my small patch at Roots, I can kind of control what goes on there. Although when you're growing things, you're never in control. Which kind of brings me to the other kind of question that I was going to put at you. And this is one that I think, speaking personally, maybe has a little bit more legs to run with. The idea that you are doing a little bit of, how can I phrase this delicately? Over-enthusiastic advertising, right? I mean, I'll be honest with you. Some of the stuff that I've read is bordering on bizarre. But that's not to discount kind of like any legitimate concerns that somebody might have. Right? The idea that you're selling this kind of this false advertising narrative that when somebody signs up that they see a picture of a lush allotment. Have I got this right? And it's kind of like, and then they turn up and it's actually a plain bit of earth.
It's their no-dig bed ready to go. It's a blank canvas for their creativity to take hold of. It's like it's really interesting because we've had people report us to the ASA and go, well, the picture that you're using in Stourbridge is actually a picture from Bristol, but each one of our patches at the start of patches is a 36 square metre patch. So fundamentally, the product is the same, the seeds that people are getting are the same, and the plants are the same. And it's down to the individual member to decide what they want to do on their patch. So the advertising is a form of inspiration to go look at these beautiful spaces that you can create and have ownership of. I do think it's a little bit unfair that we get accused of false advertising because each one of our allotment sites is built in a similar way and created with this same vision of wanting to have different areas for biodiversity, patches, our gorgeous teepees as our community hub in the middle. So it is essentially the same product packaged up. And we tried to speak to the ASA about this when we got some complaints, and they also kind of agreed that it was a bit far-fetched that people were making complaints that a picture of a family pulling up their potatoes used to market Stourbridge or Bristol or Leeds, and then we get a complaint about it, is different to the family in the future who would be planting the potatoes that we provide in March to have that exact same experience.
Because for me, and I speak from a little bit of experience here in terms of working in the growing sector, I think that I guess it depends what the product is that you're selling. Because if you are literally selling just a patch of earth that is going to stay as a patch of earth forevermore, then I kind of get where people are coming from. But then I know that a lot of people, certainly that have plots at Stourbridge that I speak to, they're starting their growing journey. And so they're not really getting a plot with you guys, I guess, like because they want a patch of earth. They are getting that plot because they want to experience the emotion that you get when you're like, oh my God, I've just grown a potato. Right?
It's nuts, isn't it?
I kind of like growing things pays my mortgage and I still get excited by that. And to me, I guess the advertising reflects that.
I think it does. And like, I think if you go through to the checkout on our site and you go, right, I'm going to buy a mini patch, it shows a drone shot from above of that bare patch of ground. It's like on the checkout, that's what you're buying. And the continuation is that we try to encourage all of our sites and our patch managers to make sure that when a member comes to site, they are getting a as weed-free patch as possible to give that person the best starting point in their growing journey, because we have 70% of people who grow with us are beginners. So trying to ease them in so they're not put off and overwhelmed is a massive part of the Roots project and ambition for me, because not that council allotments are a bad thing, and I think they're fundamentally an incredibly amazing social asset that we need more of, and it's a shame that the government are shutting them, same as community gardens and market gardens. We need more of all of this. The government should be investing in and not actively shutting down. Now, if you were a beginner and you turn up to a 200 square metre council allotment, 200 square metres as it's my 6th growing season, that intimidates me. So as someone who's never sown a seed before, 6 foot high weeds, it's going to be like, where do you start?
Yeah.
So I'm trying with Roots to try and make that journey into it as easy as possible.
Because the worst, if Kate was sitting here, she would disagree, because she loves destructive gardening. But for me, the exciting bit is like the blank canvas.
Yeah.
And then the maintenance jobs is like what I do while I'm listening to a podcast like this. So I think if someone, especially if they're coming from a beginner's perspective, they need that blank canvas to start with. The other thing that I kind of really want to mention, and this is where potentially things might get a little bit more awkward, because I genuinely don't know where I am with this stuff. So one of the criticisms that I see quite regularly is related to the lack of community outreach.
Yeah.
So a typical comment, because one of the comments that originally caught my eye was under a Roots statement saying like that you guys haven't reached out to the surrounding area.
Yeah.
I can't really comment to that myself, because I was a bit of a convert. I don't even know how I heard about you in the first place. But I just turned up and
Yeah.
I was part of the cult. It's not a cult.
Don't call it a cult. Oh, we're the growing gang. It's community outreach. It's like going back to 32 years on this planet, 32 years of change that I'm not really evidently looking at anything. And I spoke to someone who worked in the renewable sector when we were going through all of this tension with one of our locations, where we'd had actually tried to do community outreach 6 months before we opened the allotment site, and that enabled a lot of people to collaborate against us immediately. And we had to make a decision to go, at that point, we are only a team of 6 people. We can't possibly do community outreach to every single one of our locations. So we as a collective decided to not do that. Now, that's not me saying that we're not going to do it forever. But going back to when I spoke to my friend who essentially works in renewables, and I explained the tensions and the negativity and how it was making me feel and how I wanted to navigate through it and explore it. And they were saying that for the company that they were working for, they focus on the 95% of people who are positive, and the 5% of people who are negative, they don't really invest any time into, because they're probably never going to change their minds. I think the only way I can change people's minds is through action. And it is through doing the things that we're saying we want to do with each one of our locations. And that is stimulating and fostering community, engaging with a wider charity network, and creating enhancements on our sites to show that they can be a mixed use space. Now, that gets brought up a lot. People think we're talking about planning, but actually what I'm talking about is human beings and nature coexisting in a space. And
so that's interesting. So what you're saying is, when you say mixed use space,
yeah,
are you saying that there's a worry that people have that you're going to kind of start having music festivals,
I
or
think so,
car shows, or
I think there's some sort of language around that wording, and the word, like for us, that basically means we are producing a template of an allotment site which aligns with the government's sustainable farming incentives, which is trying to encourage our agricultural system to switch to something which is a mixed use space in an agricultural sort of setting. So we'd have ponds, we'd have wildflower, we'd have fruit orchards, we've had hedges, and that is it. And we have people growing and it's community. And like that is my wraparound phrase that I like to apply to it. But I can see how some people might have this knee-jerk negative reaction to some sort of change in their local area and potentially latch on to something like that. But for me, I can only go, I'm gonna prove these people wrong and show them that our hearts are in the right places with all of this by taking the time to invest our energy, and our community to invest their energy into doing the things that we say we want to achieve with every single location.
I think one of the things that's actually like running across everything we've spoken about so far is that there is like a lot of suspicion. And I guess maybe if I'm being kind of like charitable, then the suspicion kind of it comes because people have been hurt previously, that we're used to being disappointed, I guess.
Yeah.
I just wonder, because I should say that I've read a lot about you guys in the last sort of few months. It's important to reference this, that a lot of it is legitimate, in my opinion. And I'm so glad that we've been able to have this chat to kind of like to talk about that.
Yeah.
Because both talking to you on the phone last week and this is very reassuring to me. Some of the things that absolutely did not ever really concern me, and I suppose it concerned me for you, was some of the sort of ridiculous kind of like personal comments. I just wanted to touch on that. So I don't really want you to have to almost like defend either yourself or your families, but some of the personal stuff really is incredibly personal.
Yeah.
Where do you think that comes from? Because I looked and I was kind of baffled.
I don't know. I think like what you're saying, people are really angry with the world, and three lads trying to do something different is a really easy scapegoat. And it saddens me, the things that get said about us online are just so wrong, because like if you come and meet me, and a lot of the people who I have met who've read some of this stuff online, and they go, oh wow, what they say online is totally different to what you're like in person. And it's a really sad misrepresentation. And I don't want to dwell on it too long, but I've had to block and delete a lot of people who just
But it's important
come at me in the DMs, and I'm just like, I'm not been put on this planet to deal with your personal opinion about me. I'm on a mission to get people growing. I'm on a mission to make sure that people learn how to grow without the use of pesticides, which you can go into a garden centre and buy off the shelf as a consumer. And I want to show them this agricultural technique that Charles Dowding taught me. And it's about soil health, and it's about nurturing the planet, and proving that if we, the people, can grow in this way, then why can't the system change to it?
I think it's important because me and you, I know we both believe in energy. And the power of it. And it's important not to give this kind of more energy than it deserves. I think it's important to touch on it though, because one, on a personal level, I understand just how hurtful and also damaging it is, because I've been on the end of some of this stuff, perhaps not to the extent that you have. But it is the kind of stuff that sometimes does do more damage than you think, like mentally.
Yeah.
But secondly, and I guess on a selfish level, we need exciting things to happen in horticulture. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, why I wanted to get the cameras in the tunnel and talk to you and kind of just be upfront with you, is that we need people to do exciting things in horticulture. Because you're right, the change doesn't seem to be happening and we need it to. So if we need people to do exciting things, we cannot have a situation that people are being shot at when they put their head above the parapet, the way that you guys have. So it's like you either turn up and support, or change doesn't happen, right?
Or this is what I say to a lot of people. I go, look, if you eat food, you should grow food.
Yeah,
and
100%.
The act of growing food means that you become more educated in just how hard it is to grow food on a scale that we require to function as a society. And when we look at some of the stats around it, it's like this country, if you include the ingredients that are imported and then made into meals here, we import around 80% of the food consumed. Now, with all this climate crisis messaging that we're bombarded with, that makes me worried that if the situation in Spain, where we get 20 to 30% of our food from, that starts to intensify, and then they need to feed their people, and then they can't export anymore. Then where does that leave us if we've not had a mass mobilization of growers in this country,
Yeah.
and we've not allowed people onto the land, and we've not given access, and we've not been open to a change in landscape? And when you look at the agricultural land in the UK, 40% of it is pasture. And for me, a field of pasture is food growing still, because it's growing meat.
Yeah.
But the abundance of what a market garden or a beautiful allotment site can offer in terms of the variety of food is unparamount. And when you look at access to green spaces within urban and peri-urban environments, I go, well, if we're looking at greenbelt, then maybe its use of pasture is potentially not the best thing for it, because we're not close to these people. So we could raise our animals further from our cities and give a wider range of people who live in urban and peri-urban sort of parts of town easier access to a space to learn an ancestral skill that we haven't really practiced. And Britain has an incredibly proud and passionate horticultural history. Like, we've really spearheaded the way from collecting all of these plants tied to quite a dark past. But we can turn all of this knowledge into something really amazing and pave a new future for ourselves and grow into that. And it's the knowledge sharing for me. And you can sit there and watch all of the YouTube videos, all of the books, but until you start putting seeds in the ground, you're never going to learn properly. And without having that space, there's always going to be a gap in that knowledge base.
But also it's the soft skills, because I know, like, at Roots, our patch manager at Stourbridge is a guy called Dave, who's absolute legend, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And, like, me and Kate were talking about this the other day, that we grow kind of for a living, but there's things that we haven't grown before, and it's so cool to be able to say to Dave, like, what would you do here, what would you do there? One of the things I just wanted to put to you as well, and I genuinely don't know the answer to this, do you think that any of the Roots sites are less biodiverse now than they were before? Because I know that, for example, in Stourbridge, I was doing the field where we're growing. It's a former, I think, potato growing field, I believe.
What was it? Oats.
Okay.
It was monoculture of oats. And I think on the other side of the farm, they grow their potatoes.
Okay.
I think when you look at biodiversity, it's in that word, isn't it? It's diversity. So if we're going from a monoculture field of oats, or if we're going from pasture, a lot of the time our pasture land has been artificially seeded with ryegrass, and then it's had synthetic fertilizers sprayed on it. And this was a big thing we went through with our Bristol site. It's like we'd got the history from the farmer, and he'd had sprayed it with artificial fertilizers, and it had ryegrass seeded into it. And that's that. You drive around the UK and you see those beautiful bright green fields. That's artificial.
Wow.
Now I'm not saying that there wasn't any other diversity in that field, and I'm not saying that in Stourbridge there's not diversity in the hedgerows. But usually, if a monoculture arable is crops grown in it, for people who don't know, like wheat, corn, barley, and they're planted one singular species in a big area, it's almost impossible to go, that is worse than what it was before. And in Bath, we started off with a field of wheat, and that was a monoculture of wheat. And an ecologist did baseline study, then 3 years later came back and analysed our location and what we'd done with it, and we'd had a 222% increase in biodiversity. And
wow.
When we think about the future and what we need for climate resilience, climate resilience is the diversity of species that we can grow. So if we can grow thousands of species in one field instead of a handful, then that will offer more resilience. And when you're looking at the way that DEFRA actually score their for biodiversity net gain, when you look at that, arable, pasture and allotments, they all classify as a 2 score. So they're all on a similar playing field, but
Okay.
I don't necessarily agree with what they classify the allotments as. And I want to make it a mission to basically to prove that our allotments hit a lot higher than arable and hit a lot higher than pasture. The classification of various different things with DEFRA and how I thought that allotments were probably not in the right classification. So yeah, we're gonna put time and effort into basically prove that wrong. And from my own personal experience from spending time down our beautiful allotment sites and growing communities, I have seen such a plethora of wildlife that I would never see in a monoculture arable field or even in a pasture field. And we still keep vast areas of our sites ready for rewilding, and it essentially is this grassland mixed habitat. And I've seen our Tucker's Meadow site, we've had 3 hedgehog litters this year. Last year we had 3 as well that we found, and
they are in short supply in the UK.
yeah,
Big time.
Very. I've seen kestrels coming down and hunting. I've seen buzzards.
Okay, so
I've seen butterflies, bees,
Ed,
solitary wasps.
you've mentioned birds, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to go there.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
What about the issue with the skylarks in Bristol? What's your take on that?
Yeah. It's a very interesting, touchy subject for a lot of people.
Should we explain why?
Skylarks are an endangered bird in the UK. They're
Yeah.
quite high in numbers in Europe, but that doesn't justify anything of them in the UK or the situation. So there's over 120 acres of pasture in that specific area attached to our land, and we took 22 acres of it, and of that 20% of it is still in grassland. And to date we've not found any nests in the area that we're growing in. We had checks by our ecologists, the police ecologists came and checked. We paused during nesting season just to make sure that it wasn't going to get affected. We've seen skylarks displaying behaviour of feeding and finding mates. And what we are sort of continuing to see now that we're in that space is that the skylarks are still there, still feeding. And one member said, "Oh yeah, I spotted one on my patch eating a strawberry or something." And I thought, wow, well, they are continuing to use this space because they're an agricultural bird and they're adapting to the agriculture that is now around them. The other fascinating thing is, like, if you go to our Nottingham site, which was an arable field, I've seen skylarks there before we came to that site, and it's just a barren, muddy field. So the areas that we can create can also benefit these birds. And I think it's coming back to that nothing is black and white, and you can't boil it down to a black and white thing. And change is the ever constant in this world. And without positive change now, we will have a negative future. So everything requires a little bit of give and take. I was on the streets protesting with Extinction Rebellion before I got into this. I deeply care about nature, the natural world. This is why I'm here. This is why I'm doing it. Like what we were saying earlier, is like this personal attack on us and trying to make us out as if we are these people who want to destroy the natural world. And it's just totally not what I'm about, not what I'm here for. And I grew up in East rural Devon, surrounded by countryside and nature. And I want to try and give people a bit of access to that childhood that I had. Like, look at all the kids running around on our sites and feeling that sense of freedom. And that's what I had in my childhood. And I know that people who live in urban environments can't just go, "Hey kids, play on the streets." They're too dangerous now.
Well, where we're sitting right now, the kids growing up around here wouldn't have access to that, to be brutally honest with you. It's literally a pipe dream. But I guess, we're 15 minutes drive from my allotment site, where there's loads of kids running around and having a good time.
Yeah.
I'm really reluctant to kind of bring this up because I'm aware that probably everyone's going to just stop listening to our podcast at this point. But I do need to touch on the issue of planning permission,
Yeah.
because that seems to be one of the regular sticks that is used to beat Roots with.
Yeah.
That basically you guys don't care about planning permission. I mean, I really don't want this to be going to turn into some kind of planning permission focused podcast, because
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
you know, our listeners tune in because they're interested in horticulture, they're interested in growing.
Yeah.
I know personally that planning permission is a nightmare because, you know, as soon as you apply for something, it's quite costly. It's very nitpicky. And you're right that the UK, you know, we need change. And there's just this sense of everything just grounding down slower and slower with red tape. But come on, do you just basically not care about planning permission? What's the crack?
I think that a system that we created in the 50s and 60s is not open and reflective enough to empower people to get on the land. And I find it sad that this red tape that we have put in place as a species, as a country, is stopping us from practicing something that we as human beings have practiced for over 10,000 years. So I think that the planning system is an awesome thing for housing. Housing needs to be scrutinised. It really does on Greenbelt and anywhere, any housing development. If you put a house up in and someone wants to live in it, then it really needs heavy scrutiny. But what we're of the opinion of is that, and it's backed up by case law, the Crowborough versus Secretary of State, is that they got it. Allotments are defined as horticulture. Horticulture fits into the umbrella of agriculture. So when we are looking at launching on a field which is pasture, or we're looking at launching on a field which is arable, which both have been in food production, then that change of use of the land to turn it into allotments does not require planning permission.
So I guess I don't understand what's the criticism that people have about the planning.
Yeah,
What's being levelled at you?
it's people think that we need planning permission for the whole thing, and within agriculture there are set amounts of different permitted development rights that
Yeah.
enable our planning system to not get overwhelmed and still allow people participating in agriculture to continue what they're doing. So deer fences, for instance, it's within a permitted development right as long as they're 2 meters or below. You can put 100 square feet of, or is it 100 square meters? I have to fact check it, of hardcore on land which is of a certain parcel size through permitted development. Now, what people are getting angry about is because of our planning system, each council's interpretation of the planning law is slightly different and nuanced. So some councils will come and have a little look at what we're doing and they go, wow, look, everything fits into this permitted development rights, maybe not the containers. And containers are quite a big bugbear across this country for people who don't like looking at containers, but also farmers and agricultural workers do actually have a really genuine need for containers if they're being used for an agricultural purpose. They're incredible storage units. They can be picked up and moved in a day.
The penny's only just dropped for me, but the tool shed at Stourbridge,
Yeah,
that's a container, right?
yeah.
Okay. I mean, you've decorated it very nicely. I had to do a double take there, whether I was like, is that
Yeah.
I couldn't work out whether that was, okay, that's a container.
And some councils, we will work collaboratively with any council who want to go down this route with us and to figure out exactly what they want us to apply for planning permission for. But
Okay.
the overall allotment sites definitely do not need planning. And I'm really happy that we're all in agreement that allotments are agriculture and horticulture, and a seed sown by an individual and a seed sown by a farmer is the same thing, because we'd enter a really weird world if that was actually drawn into something different.
Because when does somebody become a farmer, I guess?
Exactly. And
How big is a farm?
we're setting people up for a platform who potentially want to get into a future self-sustaining lifestyle or want to get into land work. And usually it comes down to either applying for planning permission for containers or a track potentially, and a lot of everything else is de minimis as part of our agricultural use of the land. And when we've got to the final stages of planning permission with various different councils, and not every council comes down to us and goes, you need to apply for planning permission. It is such a mixed response that we can't invest the money into doing a planning application to start off with. It's a lot of money, and we would rather work with the council to figure out where we stand with their own nuanced view of the planning laws.
In a collaborative kind of way.
And every time we have applied for planning permission on a container, for instance, because its use is in agriculture, it's very unfair for them to decline that, and they would have to really justify removing an agricultural tool storage for people who are working the land, because then you're not enabling them to perform the agriculture that is under the umbrella of horticulture and fits within that agricultural definition. So it's an incredibly frustrating situation to be in sometimes when we are made to jump through all of these various different hoops. And from connecting with a lot of different community food growing projects, market gardens up and down the country, there is objections to food growing in this country. And it is a really sad state of affairs to be in, where we can't even agree that we should grow food in an agricultural field. And I wish the planning system was more malleable for people who want to set up food growing projects, because my utopian vision of this country is to look out from your urbanized environment, these green fields surrounding us, all part of market gardens, off-grid communities, community allotments, community gardens, and the UK fully embraces its horticultural past to carry it into a new future. And we need to utilise the food that we can grow in this country, because we can grow a really amazing quality and quantity of food here. And it seems a shame to export it to various different countries that we have no knowledge of their farming practices or their regulations or what's been put on it. And I went into Sainsbury's the other day, picked up a roast mix of sage, thyme and rosemary. They were all grown in Kenya. And now those three herbs, you're a herb man, you can grow them all here in this country in abundance. And I picked up a packet of bay leaves, and it's from Morocco. And like in my local pub, they actually have a 30-foot bay tree. And I'm like, well, surely that could just supply one supermarket with the amount of people who want to access bay leaves. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And it probably all comes down to the cost of food and the amount of money that land workers get paid. And this is the problem where supermarkets own 94% of the distribution of food across the UK, is that they hold all the cards to do with land workers. And these are people who are getting abused. And we have to find a more balanced way to chip away at that 94% distribution, whether it's through allotment sites, market gardens, community gardens, and we can slowly get that power back to the people and make sure that people can get paid what they're worth, and make sure that we get access to produce that comes from the UK, and we know that hopefully it's grown with no dig and no chemicals. Like, that's my utopian vision. And I've been to off-grid market garden communities, and they are the most beautiful, humbling, earthy place. And you go, wow, this is probably how we used to exist in and around our food growing, and that's beautiful. And now we've become so separate from it.
Because I think, and by the way, I got into a lot of trouble last time I said this because I was attacked from both the left and the right for being an apologist for Brexit, and I can't remember the other criticism, but I said it's about taking back control on a micro level. Because I have Crohn's disease, and I've been able to really, really improve things just by sort of controlling what I eat. And what I found is that actually it's not so much about what I eat, but actually what that food has been like sprayed with. So it turns out that, the whole issue of processed food, it applies to fresh stuff as well. That the tricks of the trade that are used in production, it turns out not great for my gut.
Not great, no. Because we know glyphosate, it's
100%.
It's patented as an antibiotic in America. And we know what antibiotics do to our body's microbiome. And they basically destroy all the good and the bad bacteria in us and life, and that's not great. So if we're spraying an antibiotic on the soil, then the poor soil microbes are also going to be dying.
Well, I always like to add the sort of like the preface that, I know it's a complex area, and I'm just speaking from my own perspective that it's absolutely helped me. I just want to throw one final thought in your direction, because I found the chat we had on the phone last week very reassuring, and thank you for giving me your time in terms of reassuring me on that level, as a customer, as a Roots customer. But thank you also for, being so honest here recording. The question I want to ask you, I guess the thing that links together everything that we've been talking about over the last hour or so, is the central problem that everybody wants more food growing. Everybody wants lovely utopian communal spaces, but they don't want it necessarily in their backyard. That people are worried about the effect it might have on house prices. Like if a Roots allotment opens up nearby, are they worried about almost like a nightmare image of a kind of a ramshackle, messy allotment? Is that what we're talking about here?
There's lots of different angles that people talk about their worries about an allotment site, maybe a Roots allotment site popping up near their house, and sometimes it's house prices, but I'd like to think that in the future, and the more development that happens, their houses would actually become more valuable because they're next to a beautiful green space that is full of biodiversity.
With a 20-year lease.
With a 20-year lease.
Guarantee there's no development for that.
And sometimes it's people from not within their social bubble coming to their area, which I find sad because we live on an island, we're on a multicultural island, and we have lots of different people who live here, and we're just trying to get on as a society. And I've had people, the demographic of our village is much different to your allotment site, and I find that really sad to hear.
Did somebody say that?
Someone said that to me in person, yeah. And
wow,
that really cut me deep because my members are beautiful, amazing people of this country, and I don't like to look at county line arguments because we've drawn up country lines and county lines and all this sort of stuff, and it's just division. And for me, the allotment sites is trying to bring people together from different areas to collaborate and make new connections. And I feel sorry for people who have a problem with it because they can't see that goodness, and they're almost refusing to see that goodness because a lot of people, they go on transmit and then not on receive. And if we all downed our tools for a minute and actively wanted to look at the realities of what we're trying to achieve with our growing spaces, it is something that I'm very proud to be involved in. And I've had to come from a place of darkness from what people say about us online and go, no, what we are doing is good and it is what I think society needs. And the amazing positive feedback that we get from people involved in our projects, that helps keep me going and cut through that sort of noise. And I think sometimes people are like, oh, we don't want to look at a polytunnel. And I actually really like polytunnels. I think they're brilliant. And the UK growing climate means that if we do want to take more control of our food sovereignty, we do need to become more accepting of polytunnels. And we do need to go, right, the UK in winter, if we want to grow things throughout our winter, then we have to embrace this technology.
They're great for sitting in and recording a podcast as well, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Well, so, I mean, no, I don't want to offend people who have a problem with what we're doing, but I just think that I am going to continue doing what we're doing because I am empowered on this mission now. I fully believe in it, and I want to see how many people we can get growing in the UK, how many people we can help transition into market gardening, and how many people who just want a platform to buy a bit of land in Wales and become self-sustaining and not have to throw themselves into that experience and learn everything in one go, which is totally overwhelming. And have Roots act as a stepping stone, a platform for this wider change. And the charities that we interact with, I think we work with over 60 different charities across our allotments now, and that is just unbelievable. And each allotment site that is established, that is producing a surplus of produce, is producing, around, I think it's 3,000 to 4,000 portions of fruit and veg per season that's going to a food bank.
Wow.
And then I look at the accumulative ripple effect that we can create across the country, and that is what really excites me. And I just think people need to really understand that we are trying to achieve some good and some change, and it's fair if people want to scrutinise us, but
Yeah, right.
to maliciously spread rumours online about hypotheses that they have that are not based in any evidence is damaging, and it damages our opportunities to spread that good across the country. So through what some people have said about us online, that's actually meant that some landowners have now not wanted to work with us. So now we've missed out on an opportunity of being able to affect 400 people's lives in that local area who really wanted us, because we do sign up data for every single allotment site, and so we can gauge the local interest before we sign a lease, because we wouldn't sign a lease if there was no local interest. And it's a shame that people are so emboldened on their mission to stop us and to dirty our name in the public sphere that they're now taking that opportunity away from people who can't even get access to a governmental allotment.
Yeah.
So then that's it. Their growing hopes are over. And that is just, it's sad, because like we started talking about how growing is our lifeline.
Yeah.
So they're actively removing someone's lifeline before they've even had exposure to it. And it's just, it's sad.
I'm conscious as well that you said you don't want to offend anybody, and I know that, you know, a lot of people are now downloading the Growing Up podcast. Statistically, there will be people listening to this that actually fundamentally don't agree with what you say, okay? Or maybe at the start of the episode, they would have maybe read some of these things the same way that I did, by the way, and be a bit concerned. And I just hope that, one, anybody, you know, listening to this or watching this, catching it up, will be reassured, you know, fundamentally, as I was, by the way, by talking to you last week. But also, on a much more sort of human level, I hope that everybody appreciates Ed kind of like fronting up like this, the way you are now, and just very much speaking, because I think that the way that people's mental health, especially online, suffers is because people are in bubble chambers. Is that the right term? Echo chambers.
Yeah.
And, you know, you don't talk to each other. So hopefully, talking like this has really sort of, you know, helped convey that.
Hopefully.
And I just want to say, on behalf of myself and Kate, thank you so much for coming to talk to us, because it's been really great, really just talking this through.
Good.
You'll be pleased to know that I will be keeping and renewing my £20 a month subscription with Roots, because we've got a lot to plan, and we're going to be talking about that on the podcast over the next few months. Ed, thank you so much for your time, mate.
Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, shall we have a hug?
Yeah. Come on. Oh, that was wicked. Echo chambers, isn't it? I'd rather be in the echo chamber of people who want to change the fabric of food growing in the UK than the echo chamber of people who want to stop it. And that's just where I stand with it all. And that's why I don't engage with people online about it.
But also, and I think for us, you know, like on this podcast, and hopefully, you know what, we might leave this in. I don't know which camera to look into for this insightful comment, but I think hopefully we've left the cameras running here. We'll leave this in, because one of the things that me and Kate want to achieve with our podcast is escaping from that kind of, and I'm not going to say anything that's going to get me into trouble here. Come on, make sure you don't, Andy. You know, that kind of very controlled media narrative of, how can I say this delicately, things going on behind the scenes that you can't see. Because, you know, the truth is that I spoke to Ed last week and I raised a couple of concerns, which we squashed. And then I was like, you know what, we need to record this and get it out to people. So there you go. Is that a cut?
I think so.
Sweet.
Yeah. And thank you for having me on here and giving me the opportunity to come and speak and just try and talk from my heart on something that I want to do. I want to work in food growing till the day that I die. And I hope that when I am gone, I have left a small smidgen of the horticultural scene of this country in a different state, and try to inspire lots of other people to take up this baton. And it's about the passing down of knowledge now.
Well, I think you've definitely done that, mate.
Yeah.
And people are watching this video after you're gone anyway. So should we go and have some lunch?
Let's do it.
Let's sweet.
Come on.
It's a wrap.